go.
Hello, I'm Adam Proctor.
And I'm Stone Sailing.
Today we're going to be talking to you about should the use of antibiotics be restricted. Just a little background about
some background information on antibiotics is an antibacteria is a compound or a substance that is used to slow down the process of growth of bacteria, and it can eventually kill it. And this is also known as an antibiotic. That's what we know it for. And antibiotics can cure a lot of things. They can treat a bunch of bacteria. People use antibiotics to treat pimples, for instance. And the term antibiotic came from a man named Salmon Waxman in 1942. And him and his workers decided that antibiotics was used to treat bacteria, and antibiotics are classified on their chemical structure and the way they work, like mechanical action and even the spectrum of activity.
Just a little bit more background information on them. Antibiotics actually derives from a Greek word, anti meaning against, bios meaning life. There's a couple main classes of your antibiotics. You got your beta-lactams, which is your penicillins, and your cephalosporins, your microlids, and your amyloglosicides. These are basically your classified information from the mechanic action, your chemical structure, and your spectrum of activity. You are mainly referred or know more about your penicillin, because penicillin is one of the basic major antibiotics that is used to treat anything from a bacterial infection or just anything that gets into the body that you might get a cut or an infection grows into it. You use a penicillin to be able to give the antibiotic to fight off that from spreading into other parts of your body.
What are antibiotics used for? They treat bacteria, that's the main thing. And bacteria is a microscopic organism that can make people very ill. And some of the bacteria that can be treated is syphilis, salmonella, I can't say it.
Salmonella.
And yeah, those are forms of bacteria that can be treated from antibiotics. And the first antibiotic that has been discovered was penicillin, and that was discovered by a mold sample. And since then, we have been able to discover 100 different types of antibiotics, and they can cure the simplest infections to some life-threatening infections. And even though antibiotics are used for a lot of treatments, they're mainly used for bacterial infections and not viral infections. So it won't very well treat a flu or some fungal infections like ringworm.
And basically, what we'll get into in the next slide is touching on a lot more of the antibiotics use against certain infections, as viral infections have become more resistant to an antibiotic, because you can get a viral infection just from being outside. So an antibiotic might not be able to fight that, because with a viral infection, it be able to mutate faster than a bacterial infection, because a bacterial infection actually needs more of your body's chemical, its makeup, and other things of that nature to actually mature and actually pretty much denature your cells. In other words, your viral infections coming from the common cold and your fungal infection as ringworm actually just attaches to the body and actually can leave after a certain amount of time, or actually could spread, hide itself, and wait until your body is at its most vulnerable point and attack. Too much of a good thing. Basically, your antibiotics mainly only work against bacterial. With viral infections, it might be no better to take medicine than without taking something against a viral infection. Because with a common cold, you actually can fight it, You can actually take other kinds of medications. Certain things you can drink. You can drink more orange juice, anything with a lot of acidic chemicals in it, to just try to fight the cold from attaching to your cells that actually move through your body. That's how an antibiotic kind of like can't fight the viral infection, because once it gets into the DNA structure and your cells, it actually forms with it. So as it matures, as it goes along, it will actually develop itself, a more developed version of itself. It's kind of like a person maturing and learning more knowledge and getting a lot equipped to know certain skills that you need for the real world. It's kind of like what it does. It figures out how it can stay within the body, figures out how to stay there, and then just adapts to how your body functions, so it knows that there's certain things that can take it away and there's certain things that it can stay with to make sure it stays within. Taking treatment might actually make it worse, because if you think about it, if you're taking an antibiotic for an illness or an infection that doesn't really need that antibiotic, you're actually exposing your body to a powerful drug. You're actually giving your body a dosage of something that might actually, in the long run, hurt you. It might get in there and it kills off the virus, but you had too much of it, so now it's starting to attack your body. It's starting to take your body for toll. It's starting to use your cells in ways that it shouldn't use your cells. It's taking your major motor skills and the functions that you need to survive, and it's using itself to build other parts of it, just like your body makes different kind of red blood cells, your white blood cells. Your DNA structure may become altered, because now that antibiotic has become so present in your body, it fights other things. So if you had a problem, you broke your leg and you needed other treatments, you needed medicine to take the pain away, that antibiotic that you opened your body up to before for something that it really didn't need to be open to, now it's fighting that medicine. Now it's actually putting your body in more pain than it should be. That medicine should actually be helping you, when in actuality it's just going along with the antibiotic and it's actually fighting your body to the point where it's hurting you internally. Like I said, the overdose of antibiotics can do harm to the body, as bacteria can outsmart the drug and change or mutate, so it takes more of the antibiotic to destroy it, without the bacteria exchanging DNA with each other to resist the drug. Because once it exchanged DNA with each other, it basically creates pretty much a super mutated bacteria that just sitting in there, and it might not affect you at first. You might be sneezing, coughing, and all of a sudden you feel better. But you go outside without a hat a couple of days, or you do some stuff, and you work in an environment that makes you susceptible to diseases and stuff. Then when you go to use that antibiotic, it actually is already present, and you're adding on to something that's actually just going to keep looking for something else to hurt. And once it feels that something else in your body, like a red blood cell, is something that's not an enemy, but more along the lines of something that it sees as not friendly to your body, it'll actually start to attack and kill it. According to a 2001 study published in Pediatricians, about 110 million courses of antibiotics were prescribed to children, but about half of them were classified as unnecessary. So that means about 110 million antibiotics were prescribed to children in a year, and it actually did nothing for those children's cold. So they ended up either worse, or they pretty much just had to deal with the common cold that they had from the beginning, and just had to try to fight it away themselves. Because the antibiotics only work against a bacterial person with a viral infection, it takes antibiotics to no better off. Infections and developments from antibiotics. Your staph infection. This is a little bacterium, it's very common. Many people having. You have certain bacteria that actually live on your skin that actually helps with daily processes. But when you get certain cuts or a break in the skin, it can cause infection and trouble anywhere in the body. Staph infections tend to be pus-producing, common minor, or relative minor. this infection recently has become resistant to antibiotics. Basically, your staph infections come from when things aren't clean, when they haven't been taken care of properly, they haven't been disinfected, and it can come from anything. It can come from the overuse of football helmet, which also develops ringworm, which is another case of how one thing can just develop another, or one thing can actually just power or generate another mutated disease that actually infects the body from another certain makeup. One of the biggest antibiotics to actually become resistant and actually develop in a human body and cause harm is sickle cell. It's basically an infection in the bloodstream. It actually, sickle cell was actually developed to fight a blood infection called malaria. It was developed in Africa. It was to take care of, because they were having a lot of problems with the blood would mutate and actually infect the body. So antibiotics were used to develop which is basically a very powerful antibiotic. And sickle cell actually attached to the red blood cells and actually fought off malaria, but in turn, as it matured through the body and generation after generation was passed with that same blood, it actually mutated into an infection that actually lives within some people, and it actually will attach to your red blood cells. It actually cuts your red blood cells in half, which cuts oxygen off to your white blood cells, which actually infects the body, because you'll go from having a high blood concentration or a very high blood count. With sickle cell, it actually cuts your blood count to like 2, 3, when it actually, a human body should have at least a blood count of, or 8 or 9, I do believe. And that actually means that with a simple cut or just a simple nick where you actually bleed can actually be harmful to you, because that's blood that actually could not be replenished in your body. The sickle cell is actually cutting that red blood cell and giving half of what you actually need to function. With that white blood cell not getting that oxygen, it actually turns it and eats away at other organs to develop itself. So this antibiotic has gone from something that helps you and is now created or developed mutated genes or DNA in your body that actually is eating away. It'll actually eat away at your liver, causing your gallbladder to actually diminish to the point where it pretty much shuts down on its own. You actually can develop a sickness called polycystic kidneys, where the kidneys actually eat themselves for the blood and the nutrients that it needs to actually regulate through your body, to process all the fluids and stuff that you're gaining. It actually is using that against it and actually eating it away at itself to try to get the nutrients it needs from your body, and it's actually taking it from themselves, so they actually shut down, and your liver begins, it actually, in some cases, it's actually been shown to a sickle cell patient will actually have the liver of an alcoholic, or a person with cirrhosis of the liver, which is actually when your liver is basically looks like Swiss cheese. It just has denatured and diminished that bad, that it's just eating away at everything, all your organelles, everything in your body, to where it can actually fall into your bones and actually cripple you to certain movements where you can't even pick up a glass of water, because it's just taking that strength or that mobility out of your body. These are our references, and I have a quick video to show you based on mutation.
Here's our patient. The patient has received all known antibiotic treatments to no effect. In conclusion, either he is not ill, or we have a new strain of microbes.
Or this could even just be a case of resistance to antibiotics. Let me explain. When the body is infected by bacteria, it attempts to defend itself in several ways, by increasing its temperature, but mainly by using its immune system. As soon as a foreign body enters the organism, it's detected straight away and alarm bells ring. Lots of white blood cells come along to identify the culprits and get rid of them. But sometimes these defences are overwhelmed by bacteria. That's when the illness really begins. Luckily, since antibiotics were discovered, we can help patients protect themselves. These drugs destroy most bacteria or create a hostile environment for them. Antibiotics soon became a quick-fix solution. For the slightest scratch, a course of antibiotics. It was so effective in preventing infections from developing that the use of antibiotics increased. They became widely used to treat battery-farmed poultry and pigs. But before long, the illness returns. And antibiotic treatments suddenly stop working. What happened? Well, before bacterial cells divide, they duplicate their genetic material. This material is composed of DNA. Portions of the long molecule can hold precise information on the activity and development of the bacteria. These portions are what we call genes. Each gene is composed of a sequence of 4 elements, called nucleotides, of which 2 are always matched in pairs because they're complementary. As DNA is copied very rapidly, errors in the copy frequently occur. These errors are called mutations. Most of the time, these mutations are of no consequence, but sometimes they can be harmful to the bacteria. However, with such a high number of mutations, some of these copy errors can result in resistance to antibiotics. When in contact with the antibiotic, the resistant bacteria will be the only ones to survive. In fact, the drug will have chosen the resistant strain. And then, since there is no longer any competition for food, the bacteria can multiply very fast. It's exactly like natural selection. Individuals with the most favourable characteristics reproduce more than the others and will be able to continue to evolve. Indeed, with antibiotics, we're reproducing what nature did 4 billion years ago that led to the evolution of species.
Well, miss, are you demonstrating here that the patient is suffering from acute Darwinitis?
You could say that.
Aha, that's exactly how I see it. Gentlemen, this case is very interesting. Let's move on to something else.